There has literally never been a better time than now to design your life. There are so many opportunities to earn money and do it in a way that allows you freedom. Get out there and learn a trade or a skill and earn a really good living.
Welcome back, investor, to another episode of the Passive Income Adventures. Today, I've got Mike Deaton of Mike and Ligia Deaton Flipping Dirt. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Mike.
Thanks for having me on, Emma.
Where are you calling in from?
We currently live in Colorado. For almost 3 years now, we found a place up in the mountains that we just love. Our house is about 9,500 feet elevation. We get 4 full seasons. We just absolutely love it. Deer, turkey running around the property. So
Oh,
great. Little
yeah,
paradise.
I wonder. My brother used to live in Dillon or Silverthorne or way up
Okay.
there. I felt like I was
Yeah.
touching the clouds when I was at his house. I could right on top of my head.
Interesting. Yeah. Officially, we live in a city called Woodland Park. It's just about 30 minutes west of Colorado Springs, but their tagline is the city above the clouds. Many days like earlier today, you can see the cloud bank floating through the valley below. Cool.
Yeah, beautiful. Just so our listener, if this is your first time with us, we talk about the adventures that we can go on if we plan ahead and get passive income so that we can control what, where, when, and with whom we do things. So get all about time freedom, location freedom, and just thinking more intentionally about how you live your life and how are you going to pay for it. Because to go on adventures, you not only need money, but you also need time. And so this show is really aimed to bring both of those together so you can figure out what's real and what's not real in the passive income world. I know that I'm talking with Mike before we started recording about what's the difference between passive income, active income, and residual income, and how that dream can often be sold, literally sold to people who think they're going to start a land flipping business or something. And it's going to be all this passive income and they can move to Romania and not have to, they just work remote and hardly do anything anymore. And we're talking more about the process of how to think about these things, how to run a business more efficiently so that you can make more money so that you can invest that money. And then when you accumulated a certain amount of wealth, that's when it becomes more flywheel
Mhm.
self-sustaining. I just think there's so many myths out there. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you how you started your business, how you're working on passive income and spending your time now that you have gotten to the point where you're like, what do I really want to spend my time doing? So thanks for coming on the show and sharing your story.
You are so welcome. I'm really looking forward to sharing all of that. You did mention there that things can be oversold or glamorized or maybe not fully revealed in a lot of the marketing pitches and influencers on whatever platform you're watching. Right. We all put up a rosy picture of how things are rather than maybe getting into the real truth. And so it is nice to talk the reality of a lot of things so people get their real insight.
Yeah, I feel like if people get down this road before they really realize what's going on, they can think it's one thing. And then when they realize it's not, they quit. So, walk me through your background into entrepreneurship and into real estate
Mhm.
investing. We get into real estate investing because we want passive income, right? And then we discover it's actually a business and a job sometimes. So, how do you balance those two things? Tell me your backstory and then get to where you are today.
One and one I talk about a lot of times with other people that I deal with, but my story personally was what I call maybe the normalized American journey. So
Mhm.
I grew up middle class America. My dad was actually an entrepreneur, which interestingly enough, it didn't really spark that in me for whatever reason. I've reflected on it a bit. My mom was a school teacher, but I went down the path of graduate high school, get good grades, get into university, get a degree, and get a professional job. And that's largely what I did. And I entered operations, supply chain, and high tech. I worked for Motorola, or right out of college, I'm sorry, when Motorola was really big into, and I'm old, so this is dating me. They were into pagers and GPS devices were just coming out and consumer electronics. Mobile phones came around. I pivoted and went to work for Nokia mobile phones when Nokia was the king of mobile phones back in early 2000s. But my career was really just climb the corporate ladder, work a W-2 job, get a promotion. I wasn't so much a company changer. I had a lot of friends who jumped from company to company as a way to up their salary more quickly. Save in your 401k, max it out with the vision of someday retiring and enjoying life and maybe reinventing or doing something down the road. I dodged 6 to 10 layoffs throughout my career, and I was on the side of the table where I was generally telling someone they were out of a job, partially through luck and partially through a little bit of bigger picture foresight. I was able to position myself away from layoffs. I finally got caught in 2016. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I lived in the Dallas Fort Worth area. I was working for Microsoft at the time. Microsoft is headquartered in Seattle, and to grow, I needed to go. there. And I just really wasn't willing to move to the Northwest. And so I voluntarily said, "Hey, if there's a layoff coming, I'll gladly see my name on the list." As a result, I had a lot of seniority, and so I got a buyout along with my severance. In that same summer, my wife Ligia also got let go from her job for a similar reason. They were moving from Plano to Fort Smith, Arkansas, where their headquarters were, and so we both found ourselves out of a job. We had
Mm.
designed our lives in such a way that was our sole source of income, right? We worked, the money came in, and we lived our lives. We didn't have any residual sources or parallel sources of income, rental properties or things like that. We'd thought about it, we'd just never taken action on it. And so in that moment, we found ourselves out of an income. And we fortunately lived within our means. We had money in the bank. I mentioned I got a severance from my company, so I had a lump of money that came in, and our knee-jerk reaction was, "Holy crap, we gotta get jobs." And so it was work our network, update the resume, start reaching out to recruiters. I had lots of interviews with Amazon, Apple, Tesla, all West Coast companies, and I already didn't really wanna move to Seattle, so I was really not looking forward to move to the West Coast, let alone start over in a new company culture. You don't know what you're getting into. You hear a little bit the horror stories of other companies and the way they're run. And so I had a sickening feeling in my stomach. I was just really dreading getting back in. I was already traveling about 25 to 50% of a month. I had an international
Oh,
job. And so
wow.
I was away in South America, Central America a lot, just dealing with my teams there. And fortunately, in that moment, my wife and I both had the ability and the awareness to step back and go, okay, we have a minute here. We have some resources. What do we want to do with the rest of our lives? We love each other deeply. We enjoy spending a lot of time together. And I have two children from a previous marriage, and they were adulting at that moment. So they were
Yeah.
getting into college, had some money set aside to be able to support their college career or whatever they wanted to do. And life opened up in such a way that green lights started appearing and doing things. I mentioned to you previously, Ligia is super supportive. She has a different tolerance for risk taking than I do. I'm more of a, I got to have money in the bank. I need a salary job. These for me are myths of security because, as happened, a layoff comes. And if you're not in control of your own income, then I think it's even more risky, or at least that's my mindset now. We decided to get into real estate, listening to great podcasts like this about passive income, cash flow, business. I had heard about people that were doing land flipping. And I listened to two different people on two different podcasts talk about the crazy returns they were getting on their investment, like triple digits.
Yeah.
And so I bought an investor toolkit. It was $1,000. I had bought it when I had a full-time job. And so it came in the mail back then. It was like a binder with some DVDs. And I just put it on the desk because I was all in my job. I wasn't looking to have a side hustle. I always felt a little guilty if I was not giving my all into my role at the time. And this is why I really believe things happen for you rather than to you. But in that moment of being faced with without a job, it was fortuitous in that I'm an all in guy. And I don't know that I would have started a side hustle unless I was forced to make it my main
Mm.
hustle. And so you touched on active and passive and residual income. A lot of people frame real estate as a passive income activity, and it certainly can be. But even with a passive investment, you should really be actively looking at your own underwriting on a deal or making sure you're understanding the business case as it's presented to you. And so there's at least a little bit of work that needs to go into understanding, is this deal really as good as the people that are presenting it to me are saying they are? Or are they missing something that maybe I'll pick up on? And that's not to say that you need to go to the same depths of running your own deal, but you should get really close or at least have a really trusted partner that is looking at a deal that's going to do something. Because if you're putting 50 or $100,000 into a deal, even more, if you really want to generate livable passive income, you need to have mid to high six figures to be able to generate the returns that are going to pay your bills and allow you to keep doing that. And so until you get to that level, you're really going to need to be some level of active income coming in. I was talking to you before we started recording that I have an 18-year-old nephew, just graduated. He has visions of being an entrepreneur. He wants to do all these things that are, he's watching YouTubes. He's seeing people talk about, hey, start a drop shipping business. You can make 5 figures or whatever per month. He has some vision of being like a website host for aggregate cleaning services or something. All of that's great, but there's a hustle involved, right? It's not a
Yeah.
passive income activity. You've got to go out and meet with people. You've got to get agreements. You've got to find back end support, all this stuff that goes into running a business that is not necessarily Cody Sanchez, right? She talks about buying businesses or plugging into businesses. Well, that sounds great, but it's really not that easy. If you have no idea what a plumber does or how to run a plumbing business, to go out and buy a plumbing business, somebody could totally take advantage of you. It's like going to the auto mechanic and nothing about the
Mhm.
car. You're at the mercy of somebody telling you what needs to happen. And with land flipping, the really good thing about it is that there is a low cost of entry. You can buy land on the for hundreds of dollars, if not a few thousands of dollars. You can certainly buy land for more money than that, but it doesn't take that much to get started. There's not a lot of overhead. You can put in your sweat equity if you want. You can leverage virtual assistants or automation or systems to get going. The deals can be really juicy. It's as they say in real estate, you make your money on the buy. It's very
Mhm.
true in land. That's exactly the business model. We know if we buy it for 50 or 40% of market value, we have a baked in profit. And so it's a very simple business model relative to house flipping or multifamily syndications or other things like that. And that was the start of our journey. It took us maybe 12 months to replace our expenses, and then we got up to salary level replacement, and then we went even above that. And as I was mentioning to you, we since diversified into commercial real estate just to be more tax efficient with our
Mhm.
income. And so we're able to, last year, 2023 was a record year for us in terms of income. We paid no taxes. And so that was because we invested in some commercial real estate properties that have depreciable or passive losses that come along with it. And that's a different animal in itself. You have to keep that up to some degree, or the tax man will eventually catch up with you. But that's a nutshell of how we got started and why we started in land, and a very brief overview of a little bit of what that business model is.
I'm hearing a lot of similarities in the story. My dad worked for Boeing in Seattle. We did not
Yeah.
want to move to Seattle. My mom ended up liking it 'cause she grew up in London. She's like, oh, Norway. It's just a little. So they did Seattle and then he got laid off, went to go work for Motorola in Phoenix. And then my mom wanted to go back to Seattle. So they got a new job at Boeing. And I knew this story growing up, but for some reason, I felt like, oh, you get laid off a few times in your early career and eventually you'll find the right fit. And he eventually ended up retiring from Boeing at age 65. And that's how we did things. And so what I'm hearing from you is that what we thought we were supposed to be doing as Gen Xers, you go to college, you get a degree, you get a good job. And we knew maybe we'd get laid off a couple of times, but then eventually you settle into the thing that you're going to retire at. I don't think that maybe we missed out. Like, I don't even think that was a model. My husband's just turned 50 and it didn't work for us. He got laid off repeatedly, I think 3 or 4 times. And we were never prepared because we were always living on so many kids and living on the edge there, trying to get ahead and just not able to. And so I'm wondering if you're looking back with that career, getting laid off was probably like the best thing that ever happened to the two of you because you could have done it if it was just you. But when you volunteered for your package, but then your wife got laid off, and now you're like, oh wait, would I volunteered for that package if I'd known she was getting laid off?
Yeah,
Walk me
true.
through that path that you took of this is they told me this is the way I'm supposed to do it. Because my kids now, my Gen Z kids are complaining. They're like, what you guys did as Gen Xers, that doesn't work for us anymore. And I think that they're true. It's true, but I don't think it really worked that well for us either.
Yeah, no, you bring up great points. Like I can remember my grandparents, my both my grandfathers. My dad's side, he worked for Braniff, which is, it ended up going out of business. One of the major airlines at the time. He retired with a pension and had the gold watch and the party and everything. My other grandfather on my mom's side, he worked for General Dynamics at the time, which is a part of Lockheed Martin at this point, but he had a stable, steady job his whole life, retired, same thing, party. My grandmother on my mom's side, she was an officer at a bank, worked without really any risk of getting let go, let alone a pension that the company paid for. And so I do think between that generation and us, there was a pretty drastic shift in company responsibility, and there was a lot more onus put on us as employees to manage our own retirement accounts, right? The shift to 401ks, all of this that came. I was pushed pretty hard by my parents to I went to school to be a doctor, and then somewhere through my university career I decided that really wasn't what I wanted to do, but it was very much get some type of salaried professional job. I think today things have just continued to shift, and you have the whole gig economy.
Mhm.
I say this almost every day in some form on social media when I see different posts, but there has literally never been a better time than now to design your life in such a way. There are so many opportunities to earn money and do it in a way that allows you freedom not only today, and I'm talking about more geographical or even time freedom to a degree to be able to work within the day. You still have to hustle and work, I would say, at an early age, because for 99% of us, we're not born with a trust fund. And we do live in a society that requires money to exist. And so, as a younger person, your primary resource that you have is time. And so get out there. And I'm so impressed on LinkedIn and Facebook. I get approached
Mhm.
every day by people that are out there hustling, right? They're graphic designers, they're digital marketers, they're branding specialists, they're whatever. They're so video editors. They're targeting me and saying, "Hey, here's an entrepreneur that needs some kind of help." And they're trying to figure out ways to help me in a way, but they're trading their time for money. You can argue the degree of experience these people have at that point, but they're out there hustling. And that's, I think, for Gen Zers, there's a lot of influencers out there that are overly hyping what can be done. And to run any business successfully, you need to know how to run a business. And I think we're also at a point where the value of a college education is really in this transitory period. I think you can easily argue that the value equation is not necessarily there for a lot of positions. Obviously, if you're a doctor or a lawyer or engineer, there's still a high degree of value. But for other people, really, you can get out there and learn a trade or a skill and earn a really good living. But in a lot of those, even if we were talking about, I think on LinkedIn, a lot of these ghostwriters, oh, I've created a six-figure salary with ghostwriting. They're also trading their time for money. They're
Mhm.
out there writing content, even though they probably leverage some degree AI and different things out there, but it's a time for money trap. And you have to sow your oats, let's say, you have to do your time, but if you're not mindful of it, you'll find yourself at 50 still trading your time for money and you don't
Mm.
have an exit plan. And so that's where the power of real estate or even entrepreneurship or businesses. Ligia and I talk about this all the time. We choose to work in our business, but we work too much in our business. Like we're in it and we're at a point where we're trying to design it in such a way that our businesses are a little more automated. We leverage skill sets of people. But in parallel, we're looking for where are the opportunities that we can use the wealth we've accumulated now to transition down the road into having cash flowing assets that are going to support us however long we end up living. And then we can do more of what we want to do, whether that's coaching other people, mentoring, writing a book, playing golf or whatever. That's we're not there yet, but it's soon coming. It's an area where we want to provide for our families as well. We want to be able to help support our daughters. We want to be able to help mom and dad have an easier life later as they're in their late life and things like that. But it requires some forethought, like you mentioned, into using the resources that are available to us today, whether that's money, time, experience, and being able to somehow leverage that into a longer term picture.
Yeah, that intentionality. I know we're talking. I just got done interviewing
Yeah,
on
we're having
my
our fun here.
podcast, yeah, the Cash Flow Fight Club, and I loved the premise of it because you're talking about all the different things that people can do to make money, to get cash flow, to invest, and having people go. head to head or just share their stories about how they're basically doing their own passive income adventure, right?
Mhm.
And one thing that really struck me when we were talking was evaluating like the triad of the time, experience, and money. How
Mhm.
much money do you have? How much time do you have? How much experience do you have? And it's usually like that two and the three. It's usually I've got a decent amount of time because I'm young and I have energy, but I work a lot of hours. So you have to think about it from like how many fractions of those things do you have? And so when you were coming into it, would you say 2016 when you started your land flipping business? Did I get
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah.
Alright, so you're coming into it, you're just coming off of basically, you're both making good money, high income. You had maybe a little bit more time because now you're both laid off and your kids, you're empty nesters,
Mhm.
right? And what did you do? You said it took you about a year to replace your expenses from your business.
Yeah.
So we're going to take you from the active business up to the residual income you get from that business, and then through the passive income you get as you're thinking more about actual retirement. What does that even look like? People are, I never want to retire. I'm like, do you want to work till you're 80?
Yeah.
Walmart grader, bus driver? Come on, let's get real about this. So tell me what you did that first year to be able to make ends meet when you were not expecting. Most of us get a chance to say, I'm going to put aside a year's worth of income and then I'm going to go start my business. So I guess your buyout, your severance, all that. So walk me through those lean years of what, or that lean year, what you did to get your expenses replaced. How long did that still was like lean as before you were able to say, okay, now we've replaced our salaries and we're living the same lifestyle that we were before?
Yeah, I consider us still pretty lean. Like, we live within our means, and we really
Mhm,
only pull money out of our business as we need expenses. But that those initial days, so like I mentioned, we fortunately had savings in the bank.
mhm,
I got a severance, and so what we decided to do, we said, let's a little bit of a Tim Ferriss fear setting type exercise where we said, okay,
yeah,
let's give ourselves a runway. And we said, we'll give ourselves 12 months because we were skeptical. We were like, I've never really heard of this business model. Is it really going to work for us? Can we do it? All those kind of things. And so we said, let's just go in for 12 months. We earmarked a bucket of money that we said, we're going to allocate this into the business. And if it doesn't work, that's fine. We still have some money and we can pivot into a W 2 job or something different. And so we put those two frameworks out there. We invested in getting a coach and a mentor, somebody that had done this before, and to help us ramp up faster. We said, if we're going to do this full time, let's find somebody who knows what they're doing and they can help us go faster, make less mistakes. And so that was a bit our framework. Then something that I think you've done similarly, we decided to downsize. We said, okay, we had what do we have as far as assets? We had a home in Plano. The market was pretty good. And so we said, let's sell our home. We don't need a 3-bedroom house with a pool and a yard and all of this stuff. And so we decided to put our house on the market to sell that. We downsized some of our other expenses in terms of cars and just made sure we were minimizing our outlay each month. We did
mhm,
move at that point. We moved from Texas to Colorado just because as part of our lifestyle design, we wanted to be able to enjoy life today or then in
mhm,
2016 rather than wait till we were 60, 65, maybe 70. My dad's 78. He still has to work to pay some of his bills. And so he's trapped in this
mhm,
situation where he's still I don't want to be that person. If it happens, we do what we have to do. That's what he's doing. He made some investments, they didn't work out. Now he's trying to replenish to get to that point. But we wanted to be able to enjoy life in that moment. And so Colorado called to us. We love mountains, we love hiking, getting outside, being active while we could do it. And so we made those moves so that we could set ourselves up to have a successful business. And we applied ourselves. We had all of our time, both of us, 2 people in the business. And so we just decided that we were going to do that. Some weeks we worked more than 40-hour weeks because we were hustling. We were putting systems in place. We were learning. We were trying to get things going. Other weeks we were able to work a lot less. But through all of that effort, it took us 6 months to go through a program to find our first or second properties and then to go the full cycle where we actually sold a property. We knew other people. We were in a coaching group. We knew other people that were starting up their land business at the same time that were having faster success than us. And comparison is the root of all suffering. When you
yep,
see other people going faster or having more success, it can be really demotivating. We hung in there. And I would say for us, going through that process, once we got that initial success and we proved the business model end to end, things just really accelerated and we were able to go a lot faster and have a lot of success. But there was a lot of doubt and mindset issues that we had to work through. And that was, I would say, for us in going through our coaching program, our mentor was not, he was not very well versed in the softer skills of check, hey, what's holding you back? Where do you feel like you're having issues? And so when we had people reach out to us within the last couple of years asking us, what do you guys do? How do you do what you do? Can you help me do what you do? Really took some time thinking about, because there are other coaching programs out there. We have competition, but we just thought, can we offer something a little more unique or different? What's our unique selling proposition if we were to do this? This mindset aspect of things is where we felt we could lean into and help people because as entrepreneurs, that's probably the majority of what holds us back, the head game and the mindset and being able to push through some of these barriers, whether it's doing the work ourselves. We started an end-to-end business. And so we had to learn acquisitions and marketing and working with clients, either on the buy side or on the sell side, selling properties, let alone the back end portion of the business. It's very rare that somebody has all of those talents. And so anytime you're trying something new and breaking into new ground, you're going to meet resistance and you're going to have those doubts. And so that's where we try to focus. Once we got that initial taste of the deal flow, then things really accelerated. And like I said, in the land business, there's largely two buckets of sales that you can transact. You can sell to somebody who has cash in their hand and complete the transaction right there. We had a more long term vision. And so we wanted to sell a lot of our properties on owner financing. If we have a property that we're offering, we might offer it at $350 or $400 a month monthly payment for 5 or 6 years, some kind of a down payment up front. And you stack enough of those deals up, then you get to $1,000 a month coming in. And then you go to two, and then it's five, and then it's 10. And over time, we've been able to stack up enough of these owner finance deals such that we now have 5 years of, let's call it passive income. We don't have to do
Mhm.
very much for that money to keep coming in. We have that security going out in front of us. On top of that, we'll have some cash deals coming in. We're able to put that money back into buying more land and doing things like that. We've designed the business in such a way that self funds itself. We don't use any outside funding. We also have that security that there is money coming in down the road and we can take more risks and do more things. And we've also since diversified. So we have income coming in from other streams and we're able to look at more holistically our business. Are there talents that we can leverage? Are there more tax efficient solutions that we can do to keep money rather than paying it out in taxes and able to pursue other ventures like a podcast? Podcast takes time.
Mhm.
There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but we get to network with people like you and we have guests on our show. We're exposed to different ideas and we grow our audience. And so there's different benefits that come along with it. That was our 12-month journey, was really getting that going. And then once we had our income at or just above our expense level, then you're really able to open up the throttle and do things in a faster way and look for more efficient solutions. Up until then, it was us wearing all the hats. We really spent very little on outside support. And since then, we're like, okay, now we can leverage the talents of an assistant on the intake side of the business or to
Mhm.
help with, or we can invest in a system to automate our outreach to landowners, or there are certain touch points that we like to hold on to interaction with clients. We just like to have those conversations. I don't really feel comfortable outsourcing that just yet. But I know people that do it. You're right. There's different ways to structure it on a commission basis or a flat fee or different things there. We do leverage realtors in a lot of
Mhm.
cases. We'll list properties with realtors and we'll sacrifice a commission, but it helps us go faster in other areas of the business. And so it really is a progression, or at least for us, it was a progression into allocating our time, and we had money, fortunately, that we were able to put into it. But one of the beautiful things about the land business is it is very flexible in terms of time, money, and experience levels, and there can be a solution design almost for any situation. And that's one of the things we do right up front when we have new clients is we'll sit down with a strategy session or a blueprint session, and we'll talk about just these kind of things. How much time are you willing to allocate into the business? How much money do you have to put into it? And then Most people come into it with little direct land experience, but they may have other real estate experience. Those are the clients actually that do the best for us, or people that already are active in some form of real estate. And we'll develop a plan. Which counties, what kind of properties should you be targeting? How do you want to go about selling your properties? Do you want to wholesale? There's a wholesale market in the land business, just like there is in other real estate ventures. There's a solution that can be designed to accommodate your specific set of circumstances. And so it's all really good in that way.
Yeah, it's fascinating because what you're describing, what we were talking about earlier, it's not like the old school way of doing something with boomers, the Gen Xers.
Mhm.
But it sounds like your original mentor, you got a lot out of it, obviously got you
Totally.
started because they're missing that softer side. And I've noticed that's an old school coaching method where you order the thing. It used to show up at your house with booklets and some cassette tapes or DVDs, the video that you put into your VHS machine, because we were paying for information back then. There weren't books in the library that talked about
Right.
this kind of stuff. And so we had to make sure that we were out there like ordering the info. And what ended up happening is as information becomes more accessible and more free stuff out there, it's like
Mhm.
your nephews. Oh, maybe I should be a drop shipper. Maybe I should know. We're so inundated with information
There's too
that
much.
what's really lacking, yes, is the accountability, the mindset, and the contextualization so that you can take somebody through that inductive logic process of, okay, if this is true, let me develop that into a pattern and go apply it over to this thing. There's the old school coaching doesn't have any of that kind of stuff in it. It was literally information for sale. And so, give me your coaching in a nutshell. How is it that you're able to combine both the information portion of it because it's out there for free, but maybe you're curating it into an easy to digestible format. And then you've got that other side where you're helping people figure out like, how does this fit into your life? And how does
Mhm.
this fit into your capabilities? And can you really do it? Because if you look at the people who fail out of coaching, either your program that you're offering or the one that you started with, people who just aren't doing it, they just didn't buy it just to not do it, right? They had the
Yeah.
intention to do it, but then they ended up not doing it for some reason. So, what are you seeing is holding people back? Biggest reasons for failures, and how you're able to combine the info and the context to help people be successful.
Yeah, it's a great topic and a great point. So it's almost exactly as you described it. We developed a program where we have on demand content that when you sign up, you get a video series that teaches you the nuts and bolts. I mean, it's not complicated. We have a suite of tools and templates. There's scripts to talk to buyers or sellers, there's contract templates, calculators, due diligence checklists. There's all the information side that's packaged up, and you get that and they're able to digest that on demand. What we've done that helps to tailor that is pair it with the softer skills. So, like I mentioned, we'll have this initial intake session where we customize things, we get to know someone. Then we have group sessions where it's a little bit mastermindish, where people come together, they can share their journey, what are their problems, their issues. We'll have a couple of follow up touch points to help people through their own personal sticking points and issues there. As we were talking about, it's these 2 things together that really hold things back. In our early when we started our coaching program, we beta tested, if you will. We brought in some clients and we saw exactly that. There are some people that are just go-getters. They're out of the gates, they're running faster than we are. They need
Mhm.
minimal touch points. But then there's others that really have hangups, and that's where the mental game comes into play, and it's really checking in with people and saying, "Hey, what's holding you back? What's the hangup?" And some people just aren't ready, and that we look at that as being on us in the pre-sale, if you will,
Mhm.
process and making sure people know what they're getting into. Hey, this is not a passive investment. It's an active business. There's the costs that are going to be involved because it's not a cost free type thing. So there's a few things that we now work better to make sure the expectations are clear coming in so that people don't ghost us or bail on the
Mhm.
program. But beyond that, it has to be a personal endeavor because everybody's in a different place in their journey. They have different skill sets, they have different aptitudes. Life situations happen. This happens in our land business. We have clients, they pay us monthly. Things happen. It's just like in rental real estate.
Mhm.
Clients run into issues. They can't pay 1 month or whatever. We work really hard to try and work with our clients within reason. If somebody is unable to pay for 1 or 2 months, we'll figure out a way to rebalance the loan or throw those payments on the back of the loan or do something to help them out of a situation. Now, it's a fine line between enabling bad behaviors, and you get a feel for when people are trying to use the system, but it happens. It's the same with coaching clients, right? Life situations happen. Something pops up where people can't, they have to attend to a sick child, or a parent, or a work situation pops up or something. And so we try to be flexible enough. And that's, there are some programs out there that are more, they're just schools, they're education, they're farms almost, just pulling people through. We keep ours
Yeah.
fairly small and boutique, and we are able to give that personal attention to really help people through whatever their situation is. In some cases, you can't do it, right? I'm not under the false impression that I can help everybody through every situation, but majority of things can be worked through. And so that's really how we pair the information delivery, as you mentioned it, or as you called it. I think that's a good phrase for it. There's information that can be digested on your own terms. And then there's actual coaching where you're helping somebody walk through the process in real life. And that's where the actual learning happens, is when you're doing the thing. And that's, everybody's a little bit different. Like I mentioned in our journey, it took us a long time to get to the close of the sale. And so if we didn't have a coach at that point, we would have been floundering. We have a client right now who went through another program, and they signed up for us to get a little more personal attention. And they're going full cycle right now. So we're able to actually sit down with them and go, okay, here's how you record a deed with the county. Here's the systems to use. Here's to walk through this. And until you do that, it doesn't really internalize. Even me today, sometimes I sit down and go, wow, it's been a while since I've done this. I have to relearn it and figure out how to get things going. But it's really pairing those two things that we generate the most success.
Yeah, and being able to pair that though, it's so huge because us growing up in the land of I need to go to bed, I have school tomorrow, it's 11:30 at night, I
Yeah.
want to go to bed, and now I'm watching an infomercial to buy tapes from Carlton Sheets. That's how we learned how to do.
Yeah.
But I loved how you said the actual coaching comes from interacting with people. Think about it, signing your kid up for baseball, and they show up and the coach left the manual in the
Yeah.
dugout and said, "There you go, have
Watch
a
this
baseball
YouTube
team." It's just
video.
yeah, it's insane when we think about it from that standpoint that a coach is going to spend time with that person and getting to know them and figuring out how to motivate them. So I'm going to ask you a selfish question that I know a lot of people who are running a business. So we have, I mentioned before we start recording, we have a couple of different avatars that tend to listen to this podcast.
Hmm.
We've got the active professional or business owner that really just wants to be a passive investor. They're like, show me the portal to your fund. Where do I wire the money? Because they are busy high achievers working and they know their own limits. They know I'm not going to start a land flipping business. I
Yeah.
have a business. I have a job. I just want to learn how to passively invest. And then we have the other portion that either the people who are active business owners who are looking for tips on how to run their own business. Maybe it's not land flipping. Maybe it's just their own business, but they're looking
Yeah.
for tips on how do I run my business better so that I can make more money so I can focus on investing passively. But then you've got people who I actually want to do this thing. Young people who are like, should I be a drop shipper? Should I be a dirt flipper? Like those kinds of things. And so I'm asking just from a selfish standpoint and knowing from my own struggles when I've signed up for programs where I see people struggling. And there are two kinds of businesses. One where you have all the customers you need, and it's more of a struggle of finding good help, like
Yeah.
a construction business. Good example there because they're in demand, there's a shortage, but they just can't find enough subs. They can't find enough tools.
Yeah.
They're having more of a supply side or labor side issue. And then there are other kind of business where they're lacking leads. It's like, I need more business. I'm marketing, I'm making the calls. For me, it's always been just not enough leads. So I would join a program like yours, say, and I would make a bunch of phone calls and nobody's converting. I'm not getting any leads. I start feeling like, oh my goodness, I'm wasting my time. I don't actually even like doing this. What are you seeing the biggest hangups for your students or for your cohort in your own coaching program that would make them say, and I'm done. I cannot do this anymore? What is that? Is it because they can't find enough good help, labor shortage, or is it because they just aren't getting enough quality leads because they're refusing to make sales calls or they hate making sales calls? Tell me about that. Because for me, it's making the calls, not converting, getting depressed, and being like, "I actually really enjoy this."
Yeah. No, it's a really good point. In our business, it's really about lead flow. And the nuts and bolts of the whole business is acquiring properties below market value. And in order to do that, it's if you think about it more in an off-market deal, right? We're finding property owners, approaching them directly, and a inquiring if they're open to sell their properties and making an offer that's below market and trying to get them to accept that. It is purely a numbers game. And for every 1,000 property owners you reach out to, there's 1, 2, 3% of people that will respond. And then of those deals, maybe an even smaller subset make it through your filters to actually purchase because of
Mhm.
whatever cost. Maybe there's back taxes that are beyond what you're willing to pay, different things. And so it really is about the deal flow. And that comes down to just taking consistent action. There are a few different ways to outreach to property owners. There's email, phone, and direct mail. We lean on direct mail a lot more. We're starting to look
Mhm.
at other ways of outreach. But we find in our own business and with our clients, if you're just doing the consistent work, I'm an operations guy. I come from supply chain. I
Mhm.
ran operations for decades. I'm all about metrics, dashboards, processes. And so we help people monitor their results. If you put 500 offers out there or 1,000 offers, you should get some response. If you're not getting response, then there's only a couple of variables. It's either your offer's off a little bit or the way
Mhm.
you're reaching out to people. So we try to personalize our engagement a bit to make it a little more friendly and approachable, or you're just not in a good market. And there's an iterative process of getting out there and testing markets. But yes, if you are doing that, everybody has their own tolerance level and threshold. But if you're doing that for some amount of time and you're not having results, then that's when things start to fall apart. And so we like to get people quick wins in the process. There are other ways to go about it though. Like we have a client who right now there's I don't know if this exists in other forms of real estate, but there's a process called arbitrage where essentially like we own some properties and we are offering them for sale for $300 a month, excuse me, $300 a month for a certain window. If you were to say, "Hey, I've got a buyer, they're willing to pay 350 a month for that same period of time,"
Mhm.
then we kind of work an arrangement where you're paying me 300, they're paying you 350, you're netting the 50 with no outlay. And so there's that opportunity to jumpstart the business. There's a wholesale market where if you're having trouble buying properties directly from property owners, just go to the wholesale market. You sacrifice a little margin, but you still have inventory. You're still going to essentially double your money on a lot of the wholesale deals are structured. So it's really helping people get those wins and not allowing them to flounder for so long that they do give up. But I would say in the land business, really it's about leads. So once you have a property, it may take a few months to find a buyer, but there's a market out there. There's not a problem with finding people interested in buying land. When we first started, we sadly laugh about it. Like we were so overly picky about the properties. We would get a deal
Mhm.
and we'd go, "Oh, that property's ugly. Who's going to want to buy that?" We have never had somebody not buy a property. We've never lost money on a deal, and we've never had somebody not buy a property. It could be on the side of a cliff or with a ravine in it, or there's somebody that wants that property. Like it's just really interesting, but it's just a fact. And so it's a lack of creativity on our part to think about. I have a colleague who bought a piece of property sight unseen. He bought it. He was trying to get his son interested in real estate. And so he said, "Hey, let's buy a piece of property for you and then you can sell it or whatever." And they went about it and bought it. It was in Florida and it was just like marshy swamp land. And the guy was like, "Oh my God, I'm going to give my son this terrible experience of getting stuck with a property." Well, somebody wanted it. Somebody wanted to go out and ride their ATVs on this piece of property and it sold really quickly. That's not a problem on the demand side. It's really just about getting the leads. And like I mentioned, there are ways to do it. And that's where somebody with experience and season can help point people in the right direction and plug them into these different avenues for picking up inventory. That's the lifeblood of really this business is just we notice when we slack off on sending out offers or mailers, our pipeline dries up and it just takes that
Mhm.
much longer to get it restarted and to get things going. But when we've been chipping away just very consistently, there are definitely peaks and valleys, but on the whole, we have, you know, success just in really staying the course and doing the work on a week to week basis.
Yeah, that like I said, that's always been my struggle when I'm working in a business that really relies on strong lead generation, like raising capital, right? I
Yeah.
do really
Yeah.
I really do tend to struggle there.
That's
I
such a hard one because
prefer
there's so much education involved, right? We talked about
yeah.
it earlier. Most people are not familiar with the real estate investment market. You say the word syndication and they're like,
All right.
"What?"
What is that?
And it's not a 3-week process to educate somebody and have them fork over 50 grand or 100 grand. It can be a year sometimes before
Yeah.
they look at different deals and see how they work and then get a taste of it. And so, yeah, it's about doing steady, consistent work. I don't remember if it was my podcast or this one that but you're talking about somebody who was just working the phones all the time, right? He had a big network, a fraternal network, and just was able to work.
Yep.
Well, it takes that, right? That's where I think in today's world, I don't want to overly generalize or stereotype, but I do think there's this mindset out there that there's just easy money to be had in these things. And it's just not really the case. Okay, you can make an investment in crypto at the right moment and maybe it skyrockets and maybe that's a thing. But by and large, you've got to be doing the work and the right work and putting it in day out. And that's part of the trick of being an entrepreneur, I think, is really identifying what are my value add activities. And you mentioned the business person who wants to transition. I think it comes down to that. It's what are my skill sets that only I can bring, my unique abilities, and how do I offload things that I am doing today so that I can do more of this? And over time, I can either charge more for it, I can just have more clients, or that's where you start to stratify your business in such a way that you're doing more of what you love, your clients feel it, they pay more for it, you get more clients, and then at some point you're making enough money to where you are able to then create other passive income streams that are coming in that will overtake your income over time, but it just takes that steady investment and because you're not unfortunately we're not going to bat 1,000 in the world of investing, whether it's real estate, stocks, or whatever, and so you're going to have to be able to weather some losses to net out gains over
Mhm.
time.
Yeah. And you mentioned that like having that pile of wealth built up. So the fact that's compounding enough that it replaces your income, your salary, and supports your lifestyle where you literally don't have to work anymore. But there's that period in between where you do need to be generating some
Yeah.
income and as much as possible, live lean and invest as much as possible. So it kind of brings me to the live lean comment that you made, because I'm in the same boat. Like I would rather lower my expenses drastically than go out and find more customers. There's always a balance there, like bringing in more or lowering your expenses can only lower your expenses so much, but your income can be unlimited. So finding that balance could be tough. But let's talk about that lifestyle design that you mentioned, because I've noticed that people who are entrepreneurs tend to talk about time freedom, yet they work a lot of hours. And so what I've noticed is that they have time flexibility where it's like, hey, my
Yeah.
kid has a game, or I need to be out of town for this thing, or I'm going to a conference. And you can make it up somewhere else. You can say, I can work after hours, or I can get up earlier in the morning, or just did we have more flexibility on how we spend the time on the business? So I found that flexible income, which is what you were talking about, is also a thing where we can decide when and how we're going to take that income. So you have a business
Mm.
that's generating income, you're choosing the things that you don't care that much about to live way below your means. You're probably spending money on the stuff that does mean a lot, that is really important. And when you can pull that money out of the business when it's time to go buy something that you're like, okay, this is a high value target for me, and having that income flexibility where your baseline is low, but then you're able to go splurge on stuff.
Yeah.
And it goes along with that irregular income because sometimes you sell something on seller financing, you get nice regular
Yeah.
payments. And sometimes you just sell something for cash and you get a big chunk in. So tell us your lifestyle design, where you're going, and your diversification into passive income started as a tax play, started as maybe a way to stabilize some of that income. You tell me, was it passive income? Was it taxes? Was it income stability? And where is this going and the long-term lifestyle design and bucket list?
So I'm
A
trying
lot
to
of
follow.
tentacles coming off of it,
Yeah.
but just being able to say, I got into the diversification play for income flexibility, for passive income, for tax savings, all of the above. Tell me about that and where are you going from here?
Sure. Back in the day, 2016, when we made our choice, it was really about time freedom and
Hmm.
flexibility. And so we wanted to spend our time together. We wanted to be able to, we're both aligned in that we really enjoy traveling and experiences and things like
Hmm.
that. And so we got into this. We really wanted to design our lives in such a way. That's why we moved to Colorado so we could go hike on a beautiful day if we wanted to. And like you said, do the work in the evening or the next day or on the weekend. And so that's largely where we still are today. We work in our business, we have more means, so we're able to leverage some resources, but we still enjoy working in the business. I enjoy building businesses. I enjoy like I mentioned, I grew up in operations and supply chain. I really enjoy looking for ways to make things more efficient. It gets me going, and now I can translate that into other people's journey as well. But for us right now, we had I would say, a 10-year vision of where we wanted to go back in 2016,
Mhm.
17. That came so much faster than we expected. And I guess it's been 3 years now. So 2021, we bought our house here in the mountains. We were renting until then, just
Mhm.
trying to funnel as much as we could into the business and into growth. But we got to a point to where, okay, we now can afford to buy a home. And so we started looking around for, not only could we afford to buy a home, but one of the things that a misstep we made when we got into the world of business is we sold our home. We started renting. We started a new business. Then after a year or two, we couldn't qualify for a mortgage
Like
because,
a mortgage.
yeah, we
Yeah.
didn't have a history of income coming in or whatever.
Yeah.
So we were a little bit stuck in a way, but it was okay. We didn't need a big house. We didn't even know where we wanted to live. And so we were
Mhm.
renting in the Boulder area, and we knew we weren't going to buy in the Boulder area because it was just a crazy bubble of home prices.
Mhm.
But anyway, we now have our dream home in the mountains. And so we literally, it's hard to get us to leave. Like, we don't even want to take a vacation so much because it is like a vacation here at home. And so we
Mhm.
set up our life in such a way that we don't need to spend a lot of money. But earlier this year, and for the past 2 years, we have taken the whole month of April. We've flown to Europe. My wife's from Romania. We go visit. She has a sister that lives in England with her family, and so we'll just take the month
Mhm.
off, and we go spend a week in England and visit with them. We'll go to Romania for 2, maybe 3 weeks. This year, we took an extra week, and we went to visit a few places while we were over there, and business still runs, money still comes in. It's just a nice way to have life designed. This summer, it's beautiful here. We take a little more time off. Now that the days are getting shorter and the weather's getting a little cooler, we'll invest a bit more into the business and do things in that way. But to the other aspect of your question, where we want to go is a little less working in our business to allow
Mhm.
more time to spend with, my parents are aging. Ligia's parents are aging. We enjoy visiting family and spending time. We'd like to go on adventure trips. We have a bucket list of places that we want to go while we're able to get out and enjoy it. Hopefully, we have our health and fitness for a long time, but it's just not guaranteed. And we're trying to generate different types of income. To your
Mhm.
point about, are there ways to deliver our course and content in a more time efficient manner? We start to transition into different commercial ventures where, whether it's storage units or maybe triple net leasing or even residential real estate, or something that's going to generate lifelong income, or at least as long as we want it to generate income,
Mhm.
that we outright own, that we don't have to worry about exiting a deal just so we can deliver returns to investors. And so that's where we start to look. We haven't really, we're in this exploratory phase of what we think we might want to pursue. We haven't quite nailed that down yet. That's the direction we want to go, such that when you think about it, I can't remember whose concept this is. I think it's Tony Robbins, and he has a book that came out a few years ago, Money Master the Game. And
Mhm.
in there, he has an exercise where, sit down and put on paper 3 tiers of life, right? What do you need to live? What are some stretch goals? What would you love to have, a lifestyle by design? And what's your wildest imagination of a life that you can live, right? What kind of foundation have you started? The charitable giving? Do you have 3 houses, places? Do you have whatever? And when you put it on paper, you
Mhm.
don't need $1 billion. The monthly outlay is not that much. And so it's not inconceivable to design the life that you dream of and be able to have that income coming in that covers a really beautiful life. And that's the outlook for us, is how do we get to that level, right? We have income coming in today, but it requires constant nurturing of,
Mhm.
we're buying properties with our own money. So there's a cost outlay, and we're at a comfortable level. But if we were to stop working today, 4 or 5 years down the road, that money would stop coming in.
Mhm.
So I plan to live longer than 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's, how do I position such that, 1, I can live comfortably, but 2, I want to be able to provide. Our oldest daughter's getting married next year, and so this year we've been writing checks every couple months.
Yep.
Yeah, hey, I found a venue. It's going to be this much. So we're happy to help. I mean, I want to provide all that. I'm a provider. I love being able to provide for
Mhm.
family and those kind of things. And so it's really just about taking it to that next level that gets me there. I don't know that I have visions of being Ken McElroy or somebody of that level. I wouldn't mind the income. I don't know if I'm well, he spends a lot of time running his business
Yeah.
and speaking and running around and Grant Cardone's everywhere. So I don't know if I have visions of being that level, but I don't need to be. I just need to be comfortably above where we are today. There are many ways to do it, even in land. There's bigger deals. There are $1 million properties out there, and I don't need to have a 100% margin on those deals. You can do the same thing with a 25% margin or something. So a
Yep.
lot of different ways to go about it. We're just in that phase of figuring out and really it comes down to just taking a step. Just that's what I tell anybody that asks me how to get started in real estate and what should they do. I'm like, just pick one and go.
Yeah.
You go, you learn, you figure out I love it or I don't, and you do something else. That's the only way to go about it.
And you mentioned that, and you're like, okay, Ligia, we're gonna take 12 months. We got our savings, we're gonna do this for 12 months. And I don't it didn't sound like you were saying like we're gonna do this for 12 months. If it doesn't work after that point, then we'll move on to the next thing. But you really gave yourself enough mental runway to say, I'm gonna do this for 12 months and I'm gonna put everything I have into
Yeah.
it. What was your mindset there? Were you thinking, and if it doesn't work after 12 months, we're gonna have to pivot or we're gonna run out of money?
We weren't gonna run out of money because we left some. So one, I had a retirement account that emergency, those can be pulled out. We had residual money and savings outside of what we had bucketed for business
Mm-hmm.
starting. That wasn't and that's a big thing for me. Financial security is really high on my list of
Me
needs.
too.
Yeah. And it's a long
Yeah.
one. You mentioned it in our podcast. For me, it's the same. I need to know there's not just 6 months of reserves. It needs to be longer than that because anything
Hmm.
below that, I start to get a little panicky. And I don't we didn't really have a solid plan B, but in all likelihood, it would have been going back into the workforce. I've been out
Hmm.
of the workforce for so long now. I'm not sure. Do what you have to do in life, right? If it's a Walmart greeter or whatever I need to do, I will do it, but it would be really hard. I would exhaust a lot of avenues before I have to do all of that kind of stuff, even if it came down to Instacarting or whatever
Mhm.
the kind of a thing rather than the corporate world. Although for the right offer, I've turned down a lot of offers since being out of the corporate world. And
Mhm.
I value my time freedom more than a mid six figure salary or something, which I can do that on my own. Right. I now have confidence that I can find a way to make those things happen and enjoy a beautiful life of travel and experiences and things like that. And so it really comes
Yeah.
down to identifying your values. And we did that exercise when we got laid off and we were going into one of the things we did was rank our values and what we wanted out of life. And now we make decisions that largely align with those values. And that's foremost in our minds.
It's like a company mission statement. What does Zappos say? We hire and fire based on our
Yeah.
mission statement. And
Yeah.
you got to be willing to base your decision matrix around what you've written down. So that intentionality that you're talking about, like writing it down, making goals, all that. But then I'm hearing also this kind of beautiful spontaneity on the other end of it. Let's see where this takes us. Let's see where it goes. We've got our base foundation level. And now you can
Yeah.
start to say, we can be less intentional. We could be for me, it's like, how worried am I about money? Do I have enough that I can swim around in the money bin and not worry about it? Or am I constantly even when we have money, I'm feeling like, where's the next piece of money coming from? And so that kind of intentionality about building so that I don't have to worry. But then you can, when you stop worrying and you can move beyond that to be like, let's see what happens here.
Yeah.
Let's have some serendipity and spontaneity. It sounds like you got that,
We're trying to get
that
there. I won't sugarcoat it. We definitely still have our money anxieties and worries. And
whatever goes away.
yeah, I don't either. It might, you're right. If you're like Mark Cuban or whatever, maybe there are streams, but the problems get bigger. And for us,
Mhm.
unexpected things happen, right? A parent gets sick, a child gets sick. God forbid one of us gets sick. Those are large expenses that can really take a toll. And we're not at that level where we could weather some amount of a storm. And I'm thankful for that, but we're not at a carefree level. I don't, yeah, to your point, I don't know if I ever would get there. I like to think that I would at some point, but yeah, I'm not out of the woods right now. like we talked about on these podcasts and on social media and things, you can make things sound really good and life is beautiful, but yeah, we still have our money struggles. We have discussions. I would love to be our house is we bought an older home. It's a 2000 build and the person we bought it from had never done it was still the original everything, right? Like
Yeah.
carpet and fixtures, gold fixtures and stuff. And so there's a lot of work we'd like to do. We just don't feel comfortable doing all of it yet. So we focused on the
Hmm.
outside. We built a beautiful outdoor living space and we'll get to the inside here on our own time. And I, like you, grew up in construction. My dad was a home builder and I like to do a lot of these projects myself, but there's some things that I don't, like the hardwood floors that gets to a level where I'm like, that's a lot of square footage to take on, and I don't have the tools and
Yeah.
all of that and stuff. I'll just pay somebody to
Yep.
painting is one that I think all the time. I think, "Oh, I'll paint this," and then you get halfway into it and you're like, "Oh my god, why didn't I pay somebody to do this crap?" It's like it's like forever.
Yeah, it's always good to have a project, either your house or your business or a personal project. People talk about retiring early and how they lose their purpose and they get bored,
Yeah,
and it's a real thing. To
it
me, when
is.
I'm like, "Hey, you retire early, come invest in our fund to retire early," and a lot of the pushback I get is, "I don't ever want to retire," because as soon as you can retire, then you have to go through that reevaluation process, reexamine everything, and decide, who am I, where am I going? One of my friends calls it Martha 3.0. She has to re-envision her life
Yeah,
after
I say Mike
several
2.0 a
careers.
lot, but yeah, I could see
Yeah.
3.0 coming.
Yeah, it's just it's a process to go through and decide, like you said, write it down, be intentional about it. And I think my next phase, Emma 3.0, is to be less intentional
There's a
and
beauty in that.
where's
I
the
love it.
wind?
Yeah, I love some element of spontaneity, but I am also one who doesn't like a lot of spontaneity. I like there's some kind of balance there, or maybe it's only in certain
Yeah.
domains, or I find myself for me, it's hard to have too many appointments in a week.
Mm.
It feels a little too regimented, and I like I said, if it's a beautiful day, I like to be able to go, "Oh, I'm gonna spend the day out hiking or biking or doing
Yep.
something," and I don't have to worry about canceling appointments or doing anything like that. But yeah, it's a balance.
Yep. Yeah, definitely, especially for people like us who are planners. I like
Yeah.
to plan ahead. I actually find joy planning ahead. And so to be able to say, I'm not going to plan it. Tony Robbins said, all humans need consistency and all humans need inconsistency. We
Yeah,
need both
right.
reliability and
Yeah, yeah.
novelty. Oh, it's just like you said, it depends on which realm. I don't want novelty or inconsistency in my financial.
Yeah, those are not pleasant surprises, unless it's a windfall of some kind. Hey,
You know what? Yeah, okay, that's a good point, but if you don't want one, you have to say, "I'm not gonna take the other," or
it's a
we'll
little
we'll see
hypocritical. Yeah.
where. So, Mike, really been enjoying this conversation. I love the longer, format podcast because it allows
Likewise.
us to get into
Yeah.
chatting about stuff and
Yeah.
less intentionality and see where the conversation takes us. So, appreciate you being up for it. Thank you for having me on your show. We'll probably, be interviewing you again as you move into your next phase. I think this is a really
Yeah, let's do
valuable.
it.
I've never flipped a piece of land before. I've looked into it a little bit, and now that you're moving into some commercial stuff, passive income is taxed so much better. It's figuring out that balance.
Great
There's a
perks.
lot
Yeah.
more that you have to teach us. All right. How do people get a hold of you? I always ask everybody on the show, what type of person should be getting a hold of you after the show?
Oh, great question. Yeah. So flippingdirt.us is our website. You can catch me at Mike at flippingdirt.us. If you go to flippingdirt.us/freedom, I try to put a landing page for a podcast like these where people it has my contact information. You can get more information on what land flipping is, how to go about it, and do that kind of stuff. So those are probably the best. I'm active on LinkedIn. I don't know my handle. I think it's Michael B. Deaton or something like that, but you can certainly find me there. And I do a lot of networking there. I would say, as far as for people that are just looking to generate more cash flow and aren't afraid to be somewhat active in their business, flipping dirt is a great way. So that's a great person, whether you're already into real estate or you're in a W 2 job and you're looking for either just additional cash flow or to totally get out like we did. That's a great way. It's a great way for Gen Zers, like we talked about. It doesn't take a lot of money. It does take some money, but it doesn't take a lot to get started. You can quickly magnify your returns and put it back into your business. And so those are great people. We do some commercial real estate. That side of our business is Deaton Equity Partners. If you're interested in passive investing, we do some commercial real estate deals and bring people into those. We've been a bit on the sidelines for the last 12, 18 months while the markets have been pretty wonky, but that seems to be getting a little more favorable as we get deeper into the year. But Those are probably the main types of people that should be, looking to connect. But I'm always happy to talk, whether it's business in general or hiking, or I'm a big trail runner, so anybody that's into running as well.
I'm a trail walker. We don't
I
run,
I'm a
but
trail
I'm a trail.
jogger, if I'm
Yes.
really honest about it.
I always say, "Oh, no, we're too old to be trail runners," but then we'll be out there and some
Yeah,
60-year-old
you
will be
you get
running by
shamed
you.
really quickly with some, older person.
I'll tell you a quick little story. Last when we were in Colorado, we parked in the wrong parking lot at the Red Rocks Amphitheater. We had to walk up all
Oof.
those stairs there in Denver.
Yeah.
And my husband had a kid on his shoulders. He was just killing me. He's just clearing up these stairs. I'm like, and then I hear, he's a man. He has more testosterone. His quads are bigger. It's fine, right? His lung capacity is bigger than mine. And then I heard sound behind me, and it was a rhythmic, weird, and I didn't know what was going on. Finally, I looked behind me, and there is a one-legged woman hopping up the stairs. She passed me. She wasn't wearing a bra. I was like, "Okay, I'm completely out of excuses
Yeah,
now."
there's
At
no
that point, I was
excuse.
like, "At least I'm climbing the stairs instead of making my husband drive around." So that was really all my consolation prize that day.
Those stairs are no joke, though. I've we've done those a time or 2.
Yeah.
It's, definitely humbling experience, it can be.
Yeah, this. Yeah, definitely. I think even my kids were baiting me. I'm not fast, but I always get there. So
That's right.
thank you so much for sharing, Mike. Say hi to Ligia for me, and we will definitely be in touch. If you want to talk about if you're an Ukrainian investor and want to get into our fund, totally passive income, like we literally do everything for you. All you have to do is your due diligence on us and our skill level, and then once you put the money in, it's we just handle it. We lend it out to people. We help them flip houses or flip dirt, whatever they need the hard money for. And you're in the driver's seat on which deals you want to get into. So let me know. Investwithemma.com goes straight to my calendar. These conversations like Mike and I are having are how you get stuff done in this business. The more conversations you have, the more opportunities you're going to uncover. This is how you network. When you first start out, people are like, "Oh, I found all my deals out of my network." You're like, "I don't have a network." This is how you get one having conversations. So I invite you to reach out to Mike. You obviously have teacher spirit, that teacher heart, and we teach people. We can't even help ourselves. We just do it for free
That's
because we
right.
just like it. So and definitely reach out to both of us and we will help you get the direction that you need to figure out where you're going and be intentional about your next passive income adventure. And thank you. Until next week.